The testaments of the 12 Patriarchs. The Testament of Judah. The fourth son of Jacob and Leah. Jacob is Yaakov, by the way. Chapter 1, Judah, the fourth son of Jacob and Leah. He is the giant athlete warrior. He recounts heroic deeds. He runs so fast that he can outstrip a hind. And, Yehuda would be his name. 54 verses. The copy of the words of Judah. What things he spake to his sons before he died. They gathered themselves together before and came to him. And he said to them, Hearken, my children, to Judah, your father. I was the fourth son born to my father Jacob, and Leah, my mother, named me Judah, saying, I have given thanks to the Lord, because he hath given me a fourth son also. Now, it's possible that Aduni was the term used, which can be rendered as Lord, leader of the community also, but Yahweh, increasing existence, God is a noun and verb, establishing, that's the sort of meaning that would have, not Lord. Yes, give me a fourth son also. I was swift in my youth and obedient to my father in everything, and I honored my mother and my father's sister, and it came to pass when I became a man that my father blessed me, saying, Thou shalt be a king, prospering in all things. And the Lord showed me favor in all my works, both in the field and in the house. I know that I raced a hind, and caught it, and prepared the meat for my father, and he did eat. And the roes I used to master in the chase, R-O-E-S, and overtake all that was in the plains. A wild mare I overtook and caught it and tamed it. I slew a lion and plucked a kid out of its mouth. I took a bear by its paw and hurled it down the cliff, and it was crushed. I outran the wild boar, and seizing it as I ran, I tore it in sunder. A leopard in Hebron leaped upon my dog, and I caught it by the tail and hurled it on the rocks, and it was broken in twain. I found a wild ox feeding in the fields, and seizing it by the horns, and whirling it round, and stunning it, I cast it from me, and slew it. And when the two kings of the Canaanites came, sheathed in armor, against our flocks, and much people with them, single-handed I rushed upon the king of Hazor, and smote him on the graves, and dragged him down, and so I slew him. And on the other, the king of Tapua, and he set upon his horse, I slew, and so I scattered all his people. Achor the king, a man of great stature, I found hurling javelins before and behind as he sat on horseback. And I took up a stone of 60 pounds weight, and hurled it, and smote his horse, and killed it. And I fought with this other for 2 hours, and I clave his shield in twain, and I chopped off his feet, and killed him. And as I was stripping off his breastplate, I behold, 9 men, his companions, began to fight with me. And I wound my garment on my hand, and I slung stones at them, and killed 4 of them, and the rest fled. And Jacob my father slew Belasath, king of all the kings, a giant in strength, 12 cubits high, and fear fell upon them, and they ceased warring against us. And therefore my father was free from anxiety in the wars when I was with my brethren, for he saw in a vision concerning me that an angel of might followed me everywhere, that I should not be overcome. And in the south there came upon us a greater war than that in Shechem. And I joined in battle array with my brethren, and pursued 1,000 men, and slew of them 200 men and 4 kings. And I went upon the wall, and I slew 4 mighty men, and so we captured Hazor, and took all the spoil. And the next day we departed to Erotan, a city strong and walled and inaccessible, threatening us with death. But I and Gad approached on the east side of the city, and Reuben and Levi on the west. So no V, so Lawi. Lawi. And Lawi on the west. And the 12 tribes, there's the allegory in terms of their directions 2. So, and they that were upon the wall, thinking that we were alone, were drawn down against us. And so my brothers secretly climbed up the wall on both sides by the stakes, and entered the city, while the men knew it not. And we took it with the edge of the sword. And as for those who had taken refuge in the tower, we set fire to the tower, and took both it and them. And as we were departing, the men of Tapua seized our spoil. And seeing this, we fought with them, and we slew them all, and recovered our spoil. And when I was at the waters of Kozeba, the men of Jobel came against us to battle. Now, it says Jobel, is it a U-ball? You know, because Job is Ayub, and El is Al, Al. And we fought with them and routed them, and their allies from Shiloh we slew, and we did not leave them power to come in against us. And the men of Machir came upon us the 5th day to seize our spoil, and we attacked them and overcame them in fierce battle. For there was a host of mighty men amongst them, and we slew them before they had gone up the ascent. And when we came to their city, the women rolled upon us stones from the brow of the hill on which the city stood, and I and Simeon had ourselves behind the town, and seized upon the heights, and destroyed the city also. And the next day it was told us that the king of the city of Gosh, some of these 2A things is but I see no marks. Maybe it's just one a regular A. With us, a mighty host was coming against us. I, therefore, and Dan fortified ourselves to be Amorites. And as allies went into their city, and in the depth of night our brethren came, and we opened to them the gates, and we destroyed all the men and their substance, and we took for a prey all that was theirs, and their 3 walls we cast down, and we drew near to Thumna, where was all the substance of the hostile kings. Then, being insulted by them, I was therefore wroth, and rushed against them to the summit. And they kept slinging against me stones and darts, and had not Dan my brother aided me, they would have slain me. We came upon them with wrath, and they all fled, and passing by one another by another way, they besought my father, and he made peace with them, and we did to them no hurt, and they became tributary to us, and we restored to them their spoil. And I built Thamna, and my father built Pabael. And I was 20 years old when this war befell, and the Canaanites feared me and my brethren, and I had much cattle, and I had for chief herdsman Aram the Adulamite. And when I went to him, I saw Parseba the king of Adulam, and he spake to us, and he made us a feast. And when I was heated, he gave me his daughter Bathsheba to wife. She bare me Er, and Onan, and Shelah, and 2 of them the Lord smote, for Shelah lived, and his children are yea. Chapter 2, Judah describes some archaeological findings, a city with walls of iron and gates of brass. He has an encounter with an adventuress, and something that the Persians built. Is that what we're implying here? 35 verses. And 18 years my father abode in peace with his brother Esau, and his sons with us. After that we came from Mesopotamia, from Laban. And when 18 years were fulfilled, in the 40th year of my life, Esau, the brother of my father, came upon us with a mighty and strong people. And Jacob smote Esau with an arrow, and he was taken up wounded on Mount Seir. And as he went, he died at Anan Aram, and we pursued after the sons of Esau, and now they had a city with walls of iron and gates of brass, and we could not enter into it, and we encamped around and besieged it. And when they opened not to us 20 days, I set up a ladder in the sight of all, and with my shield upon my head I went up, sustaining the assault of stones, upwards of 3 talents weight, and I slew 4 of their mighty men. And Reuben and Gad slew 6 others, and then they asked from us terms of peace. And having taken counsel with our father, we received them as tributaries, and they gave us 500 cores of wheat, 500 baths of oil, 500 measures of wine, until the famine when we went down into Egypt. And after these things, from my son Er took to wife Tamar, from Mesopotamia, a daughter of Aram. Now Er was wicked, and he was in need concerning Tamar, because she was not of the land of Canaan. And on the third night an angel of the Lord smote him, and he had not known her, according to the evil craftiness of his mother, for he did not wish to have children by her. In the days of the wedding feast I gave Onan to her in marriage, and he also in wickedness knew her not, though he spent with her a year. And when I threatened him, he went into her, but he spilled the seed on the ground according to the command of his mother, and he also died through wickedness. Now that's a bad plan for birth control. It's even a bad plan to birth control to rely on condoms, because 1 out of 7 times there's going to be some leakage, and people don't always necessarily know. And that's what they say about using it. That's what Trojan and stuff has said about using it right. So, yeah, don't rely on that to prevent pregnancy, to stop pregnancy and disease. It's going to cut the frequency of such down. But yeah, and I wish to give Shelah, but dying because you've pulled out on your wife, that seems a bit harsh. And I wish to give Shelah also to her, but his mother did not permit it, for she wrought evil against Tamar, because she was not of the daughters of Canaan, as she also herself was. And I knew that the race of the Canaanites was wicked, but the impulse of youth blinded my mind. While there's certainly there's good and bad people everywhere. Degrees and frequencies can vary, but yeah. And were they lighter skinned? Or were the Israelites, because they're Persian ancestries, just as light? Either way, they're real, they're Semitic people, whatever. Saying they're of a different race, that doesn't make sense. And I knew that the race of the Canaanites was wicked, but the impulse of youth blinded my mind. And when I saw her pouring out wine, owing to the intoxication of wine, I was deceived, and took her, although my father had not counseled it. And when I was away, she went and took for Shelah a wife from Canaan. And when I knew what she had done, I cursed her in the anguish of my soul, and she also died through her wickedness together with her sons. And after these things, while Tamar was a widow, she heard after 2 years that I was going up to shear my sheep, and adorned herself in bridal array, and sat in the city and an inn by the gate. For it was the law of the Amorites that she who was about to marry should sit in fornication 7 days by the gate. Yeah, some customs like that have existed amongst certain people, so, nowadays it's been delineated into whatever their interpretation of the bachelor and bachelorette party are, but yeah, come on. Therefore, being drunk with her wine, I did not recognize her, and her beauty deceived me through the fashion of her adorning. And I turned aside to her and said, Let me go in unto thee. And she said, What wilt thou give me? And I gave her my staff and my girdle and the diadem of my kingdom in pledge. And I went in unto her, and she conceived, and not knowing what I had done, I wished to slay her. But she privily sent my pledges, and put me to shame. And when I called her, I heard also the secret words which I spoke while lying with her in my drunkenness, and I could not slay her, because it was from the Lord. For I said, lest happily she did it in subtlety, having received the pledge from another woman. But I came not again near her while I lived, because I had done this abomination in all Israel. In all Israel. So, he did this other places too, didn't he? He just got caught that time. Yeah, things, especially when shame's the only motivation, if you can't be moved by guilt, yeah, things can get out of hand, can't they? Moreover, they who were in the city said, There was no harlot in the gate, because she came from another place and sat for a while in the gate. And I thought that no one knew that I had gone into her. And after this we came into Egypt, Egypt to Joseph because of the famine, and I was 40 and 6 years old, and 70 and 3 years lived I in Egypt. Chapter 3. He counsels against wine and lust as evil twins, for he who is drunken reverences no man. 50 verses. And now I command you, my children, hearken to Judah your father, and keep my sayings, to perform all the ordinances of the Lord, and to obey the commands of God, and walk not after your lust, nor in the imaginations of your thoughts, and in haughtiness of heart, and glory not in the deeds and strength of your youth, for this also is evil in the eyes of the Lord. It's so much is about what you continue to do, what you continue to believe, not, I did great things with that. Well, do the best you can with what's left. Since I also gloried in that wars, since I also gloried that in wars, I wouldn't phrase it that way. Since I also gloried that in wars no comely woman's face ever enticed me, and reproved Reuben my brother concerning Bilhah, my wife of my father, the spirits of jealousy and of fornication arrayed themselves against me until I lay with Bathsheba the Canaanite, and Tamar, who was espoused to my sons. For I said to my father-in-law, I will take counsel with my father, and so will I take thy daughter. And he was unwilling, but he showed me a boundless store of gold in his daughter's behalf, for he was a king, and he adorned her with gold and pearls, and caused her to pour out wine for us at the feast with the beauty of women. And the wine turned aside my eyes, and pleasure blinded my heart, and I became enamored of, and I lay with her, and transgressed the commandment of the Lord and the commandment of my fathers, and I took her to wife. And the Lord rewarded me according to the imagination of my heart, inasmuch as I had no joy in her children. And now, my children, I say unto you, be not drunk with wine, for wine turneth the mind away from the truth, and inspires the passion of lust, and leadeth the eyes into error. For the spirit of fornication hath wine as a minister, to give pleasure to the mind. For these two also take away the mind of man. For if a man drink wine to drunkenness, it disturbeth the mind with filthy thoughts, leading to fornication, and heateth the body to carnal union. And if the occasion of the lust be present, he worketh the sin, and is not ashamed. Such is the inebriated man, my children. For he who is drunken reverenceth no man. For lo, it made me also to err, that I was not ashamed of the multitude in the city, that before the eyes of all I turned aside unto Tamar, and I wrought a great sin, and I uncovered the covering of my son's shame. After I had drunk wine, I reverenced not the commandment of God, and I took a woman of Canaan to wife. The idea that just another marrying from the wrong tribe is sin in itself. That doesn't sit well with me. But remember, in the Bible, as opposed to the Quran and some other sacred text, the private area, the knees to the navel, the women have more. People refer to this as shame. Aura is like the glory or something like that. So, you can render that as glory. So, what's the word? Beshed? For much discretion needeth the man who drinketh wine, my children, and herein is a discretion in drinking wine. A man may drink so long as he preserveth modesty. Well, without experimenting, how do you know what limits you're going to preserve, So it'd be safer to completely abstain. But if he go beyond this limit, the spirit of deceit attacketh his mind, and it maketh the drunkard to talk filthily, and to transgress, and not to be ashamed, but even to the glory in his shame, and to account himself honorable. He that committeth fornication is not aware when he suffers loss, and is not ashamed when put to dishonor. For even though a man be a king and committeth fornication, he is stripped of his kingdom by becoming the slave of fornication, as I myself also suffered. Aleister Crowley, one of the things about him, it wasn't that you just indulge, that you don't let these things be master over you. You be master over whatever you choose. You know, you don't have to indulge in wickedness per se, but whatever the case is, be master of your actions. Don't let these habits control you. For I gave my staff, that is the stay of my tribe, and my girdle, that is my power, and my diadem, that is the glory of my kingdom. And indeed I repented of these things. Wine and flesh I eat, not until my old age, nor did I behold any joy. And the angel of God showed me that forever do women bear rule over king and beggar alike, and from the king they take away his glory, and from the valiant man his might, and from the beggar even that little which is the stay of his poverty. Observe therefore, my children, the right limit in wine, for there are in it 4 evil spirits of lust, of hot desire, of profligacy, and a filthy lucre. Well, even wine causes delusion, so there's that too. If you drink wine in gladness, be ye modest in the fear of God, for in your gladness the fear of God departeth, and the drunkenness ariseth, and shamelessness stealeth in. But if ye would not live soberly, do not touch wine at all, lest ye in sin, in words of outrage, and in fightings, and slanders, and transgressions of the commandments of God, and ye perish before your time. Moreover, wine revealeth the mysteries of God and men, even as I revealed the commandments of God and the mysteries of Jacob, my father, to the Canaanitish woman Bathsheba, which God bade me not to reveal. And wine is a cause both of war and confusion. And now I command you, my children, not to love money, nor to gaze upon the beauty of women, because for the sake of money and beauty was I led astray to Bathsheba the Canaanite. For I know that because of these 2 things shall my race fall into wickedness. For even wise men among my sons shall they mar, and shall cause the kingdom of Judah to be diminished, which the Lord gave me because of my obedience to my father. For I never caused grief to Jacob my father, for all the things whatsoever he commanded I did. And Isaac the father of my father blessed me to be king in Israel, and Jacob further blessed me in like manner. And I know that from me shall the kingdom be established, and I know what evils ye will do in the last days. Beware therefore, my children, of fornication and the love of money, and hearken to Judah your father, for these things withdraw you from the law of God, and blind the inclination of soul, and teach arrogance, and suffer not a man to have compassion upon his neighbor. They rob his soul of all goodness, and oppress him with the toils and troubles, and drive away sleep from him, and devour his flesh. And he hindereth the sacrifices of God, and he remembereth not the blessing of God. He hearkeneth not to a prophet when he speaketh, and resenteth the words of godliness. For he is a slave to 2 contrary passions, and cannot obey God, because they have blinded his soul, and he walketh in the day as in the night. My children, the love of money leadeth to idolatry, because when led astray through money, men name as gods those who are not gods, and it causeth him who hath it to fall into madness. For the sake of money I lost my children, and had not my repentance and my humiliation and the prayers of my father been accepted, I should have died childless. But the God of my fathers had mercy on me, because I did it in ignorance. And the prince of deceit blinded me, and I sinned as a man, and as flesh, being corrupted through sins, and I learnt my own wickedness, while thinking myself invincible. Know therefore, my children, that these 2 spirits wait upon man, and the spirit of truth and the spirit of deceit. And in the midst is the spirit of understanding, of the mind, of which it belongeth to turn whithersoever it will. And the works of truth and the works of deceit are written upon the hearts of men, and each one of them the Lord knoweth. And there's no time at which the works of men can be hid, for on the heart itself have they been written down before the Lord. And the spirit of truth testifieth all things, and accuseth all. And the sinner is burnt up by his own heart, and cannot raise his face to the judgment. Chapter 4. Judah makes a vivid simile concerning tyranny, and a dire prophecy concerning the morals of his listeners. 36 verses. And now, my children, I command you, love Levi, that ye may abide, and exalt not yourselves against him, lest ye be utterly destroyed. For to me the Lord gave the kingdom, and to him the priesthood, and he set the kingdom beneath the priesthood. To me he gave the things upon the earth, to him the things in the heavens. As the heaven is higher than the earth, so is the priesthood of God higher than the earthly kingdom, unless it falls away through sin from the Lord, and is dominated by the earthly kingdom. For the angel of the Lord said unto me, The Lord chose him rather than thee, to draw near to him, and to eat of his table, and to offer him the firstfruits of the choice things of the sons of Israel. But thou shalt be king of Jacob, and thou shalt be amongst them as the sea. For as on the sea just and unjust are tossed about, some taken into captivity, while some are enriched, so also shall every race of man be in thee. Some shall be impoverished, being taken captive, and others grow rich by plundering the possessions of others. For the king shall be as sea monsters, they shall swallow men like fishes. The sons and daughters of freemen shall they enslave. Houses, lands, flocks, money shall they plunder, and with the flesh of many shall they wrongfully feed the ravens and the cranes, and they shall advance in evil, in covetousness uplifted, and there shall be false prophets like tempests, and they shall persecute all righteous men, and the Lord shall bring upon them divisions one against the other, and there shall be continual wars in Israel, and among men of another race shall my kingdom be brought to an end, until salvation of Israel shall come, until the appearing of the God of righteousness, that Jacob and all the Gentiles may rest in peace. Gentile probably is the word for people who've turned their back on God, which is not appropriate to use just because someone's of a different tribe. But if the Israelites have fallen, then that's the case too. And he shall guard the might of my kingdom forever. For the Lord sware to me with an oath that he would not destroy the kingdom for my seed forever. Now, it's obvious from the what they call the New Testament that Jesus could be the fulfillment of this prophecy, because his scripture obviously wasn't preserved. There's got to be parts in it somewhere, but now I have much grief, my children, because of your lewdness, and witchcrafts, and idolatries, which you shall practice against the kingdom, following them that have familiar spirits, diviners, and demons of error. Ye shall make your daughters singing girls and harlots, and ye shall mingle in the abomination of the Gentiles. For which things' sake the Lord shall bring upon you famine and pestilence, death and the sword, beleaguering by enemies, and rivalings of friends, the slaughter of children, the rape of wives, the plundering of possessions, the burning of the temple of God, the laying waste of the land, and enslavement of yourselves among the Gentiles. And they shall make some of you eunuchs for their wives, until the Lord visit you, when with perfect heart ye repent, and ye walk in all his commandments, and ye bring you up from captivity among the Gentiles. And after these things shall a star arise to you from Jacob in peace. And a man shall arise from my seed, like the Son of Righteousness, walking with the sons of men in meekness and righteousness. And no sin shall be found in him, and the heavens shall be opened unto him, to pour out the Spirit, even the blessing of the Holy Father. And he shall pour out the Spirit of grace upon you, and ye shall be unto him sons in truth, and ye shall walk in his commandments first and last. And shall the scepter of my kingdom shine forth, and from your root shall arise a stem, and from it shall grow a rod of righteousness to the Gentiles to judge, and to save all that call upon the Lord. And after these things shall Abraham and Isaac and Jacob arise unto life, and I and my brethren shall be chiefs of the tribes of Israel. Levi first, I the second, Joseph third, Benjamin fourth, Simeon fifth, Issachar sixth, and so all in order. And the Lord blessed Levi and the angel of the presence, me, the powers of glory, Simeon, the heaven, Reuben, the earth, Issachar, the sea, Zebulun, the mountains, Joseph, the tabernacle, Benjamin, the luminaries, Dan, Eden. Naphtali, the sun, Gad, the moon, Asher. And ye shall be the people of the Lord, and have one tongue, and there shall be no spirit of deceit of Beliar. You might want to refer to the biblical cosmology and demonology for the pentagram rite, like the Goetia, number 68. That goes into it a lot more thoroughly, but obviously Beliar is a chief demon, at the very least, like an archdemon, you could say. For he shall be cast in fire forever, and they who have died in grief shall arise in joy, and they who are poor for the Lord's sake shall be made rich, and they who are put to death for the Lord's sake shall awake to life, and the hearts of Jacob shall run in joyfulness, and the eagles of Israel shall fly in gladness, and all the people shall glorify the Lord forever. Observe therefore, my children, all the law of the Lord, for there is hope for all them who hold fast unto his ways. And he said unto them, Behold, I die before your eyes this day 119 years old. Let no one bury me in costly apparel, nor tear open my bowels, for this shall they who are kings do, and carry me up to Hebron with you. And Judah, when he had said these things, fell asleep, and his sons did according to all whatsoever he commanded them. And they buried him in Hebron with his fathers. And I was going to, show the mushrooms here. So, like to see these 12 list of 12 things. Oh, Belial and connected to fire. Yeah, it just depends on what context, what attributes some entities are given. So, obviously, this testament justifies that interpretation. But we also see, if it's about us rather than certain tribes, see, we can divide these things as things that, we refer to amongst ourselves. And, the kingdom shines forth. Don't wait for the individual to show up. Help pave the way, as it's said. And, of course, Israel, the upright of God, that can change via generation. But we learned from this that, the Israelites aren't going to have it well. But they could.